I draw, you paint and write and play. But how do we begin? Where do we start? Now, when we arrived into Poland, and as we look around, what I noticed were the beautiful trees everywhere we looked, this glorious creation of God. These beautiful, beautiful structures. And I was thinking, Liv, of your trumpet to the universe, these huge structures that go right up in the sky. And we would need to have planning permission. We would need to have feasibility studies and health and safety if we were going to make one of these things, right? We would need to have there would be a lot of paperwork to be able to construct one of these out in the woods. However, God takes a seed 1 millimeter high and blows it on the wind. And there it's planted, and their beauty grows without planning permission, without all of these things, because this is his universe, this is his earth. And so what I wanted us to start with is actually what Rainis was already bringing our attention to this morning. I wanted to start with the staggering account of creation, where it's recorded in this beautiful poem, 3,500 years old, in the 3,500-year-old text. And we are entering into this formless void where there is nothing other than water. And I wanted to read a little bit to you, just excerpts from Genesis chapter 1. And I'd like us to imagine that this is where we are, all right? The creativity, the Creator is standing above it, but there is nothing but formlessness and void. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water." And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, let dry land appear." And God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants, trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it according to their kinds." And God said, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate day from night." And God said, "Let the waters teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky." And God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, living creatures, livestock that move across the ground, and wild animals." And God said, "Let us make mankind in our image." Into the silence, the Creator spoke. He spoke the worlds into being, the voice of the Ancient of Days, who communicated from the eternal realm, conveyed the essence of God, the beauty of the Creator. God spoke. God said, He said, "I am a very creative being." And He said, "I am a creative being, and this is how I speak. This is how I speak." And He lifts a brush. He lifts a brush and He paints the skies. And as we were hearing this morning, He commands noise to fill the air and sounds to occupy all the space. And the angels, as they watched and they sang as God made the earth. God spoke us into being. He created us in His likeness. He created us to be like Him. So there's this need to communicate through sound, through painting, through drama, through movement. Because we've been created in the image of God. We've been made in His image. When I lift something up, I can see quite quickly this has been made in China. This one that was also made in China. I was looking at a pen that I had this morning. It was made in France. And my water bottle was made in Warsaw. All these different things were made in different places. We are made in the image of God. That's the sticker on us. That's what it says. We have been made, created in God's image, and as such, we have a need to communicate. We have a desire to say something, whether that is through music or whether that is through art or anything. I was looking through the Psalms again, as I love them now so dearly, and I was noticing that Psalms and the account of creation is a very noisy account. It's not quiet, because you imagine, the deep, the Spirit of God, everything's quiet, nothing's going on. This is one of my favorite artists. She's a Scottish artist. That painting isn't actually finished. It's still wet on her easel. She just painted it in situ. Isn't it stunning? Isn't it beautiful? But it just hear the noise here. Let the heavens rejoice, the earth be glad, the sea resound, the fields be jubilant, the trees and forests sing. Let all creation rejoice. There's the sound of the universe, which is going right across and touching every creature, as we all interact and hear the noise of God. So God said, but then there's another piece in here. I skipped it in Genesis chapter 1. And it says, God said, let there be light. There was light. Then God saw that the light was good. God called the dry ground land, the gathered waters he called sea, and God saw that it was good. The land produced vegetation, plant-bearing seeds, and God saw it was good. He also made the stars. He also made the stars, and God saw that it was good. He made the living things which the water teems with and move about in it. God saw that it was good. The wild animals according to their kinds, God saw that it was good. And on the last day, God saw all that he made, and it was very good. So God spoke, but God saw. So there's something about the speaking, the act of creation, and the contemplation of what has been. Spending time looking and seeing what has been made. Not just saying, okay, I'm done with that and let's move on, but contemplating and thinking and seeing. This seems to be quite a lot to do with sight and contemplation. So God gazes on beauty, and there's also something lovely in there as well. It says that God saw that it was good. When you think of goodness, it's like your shoulders go down. You can rest because something is good. And what we were singing at the end, at the beginning, God is good. He is good. And it allows us to rest, to be at peace. Doesn't it? Something about speaking, contemplating, resting in goodness. So the act of creation is this contemplation, creation, until there's only rest. So that is wonderful. That's Genesis. But what about Christ? What about Jesus? How did he communicate? How did he engage? How did he speak? How did he teach? There's a really startling discovery that I made a little while ago as I was thinking about how Christ speaks to us. When Jesus speaks, sometimes he begins with truth. So sometimes he begins with information. He gives information out to the disciples, and he says, and he speaks just the facts. He doesn't do that very often. He only does that when there's no context to put it into. Do you know what I mean? So he says, the Son of Man will suffer, be rejected by elders, by the chief priests, the teachers of the law. He will be killed. 3 days later, he will rise. That's pure information. But there was no context to put that in, so he just gave that to them straight, to the disciples. Then also, Yet there are these other elements of how he speaks. He speaks through experience. He speaks through need. And actually the questions that I put around at the beginning, just for us to think through, is how has God spoken to you? And when was that? When did something that he said to you become very precious? What was happening at the time? And so we read in the Bible that often he speaks with information, but more often than anything else in the Gospels, Christ speaks through experience. You know, when you think about Jesus, you think, well, you should hire the Areopagus, get everybody a notepad, sit them down, tell them to write as fast as they can for 3 years, and then we've got some content, you know. But he doesn't do that. When he wants to teach his disciples about faith, he takes them into a storm. And he lets them experience the waves and the fear and the buffeting and all of that. And then he stands at the end and then they can trust, can't they? Then they see, this is the mighty one. I can put my life in his hands. This is all right. So the creator of the universe, in his creating faith and trust in us, he takes us sometimes through dark times, through difficulties. Jesus, when he was wanting to teach faith, he took the disciples into a storm. One of the most amazing times when Christ wanted to teach humility, you know the passage. There's Rembrandt's picture of Christ washing the disciples' feet. He didn't say anything before he did it. He started washing their feet. And then Peter's like, no, Lord, don't do this. And then he says, oh, no, this is what you need. It's like, oh, then wash me all. Wash every bit of me. Just wash me. But he started with an experience. And it's really interesting, you know, for my personal situation, I with COVID, just a couple of weeks ago, I was at a prayer meeting and they asked me to read Psalm 119, verse 71, 72. And it says, it was good for me to have been afflicted, that I might learn your law. Your words to me are sweeter than thousands of pieces of silver and gold. And that hit so hard because I'm thinking, that is it, Lord. If you had not healed me, you would still be on the throne. But I thank you so much that you did and that you showed me that this was good, that I can learn from you and that this is good. So Christ started with experience, with what is happening, and from that he created faith and he birthed hope. And there's something else that he did, which was quite beautiful. Let's see, here we are. He invited his followers to see. So he spoke through experiences, which he has spoken through to each of us. I'm sure when you're thinking of the times where God has been closest, where you've learned deep things, it's often when things are not just floating along in a very easy way in your life. So he teaches through experience, but then he calls his disciples to contemplate, to think, to consider. Let me just read a little bit from Matthew chapter 6. This will all make perfect sense when it'll all come together. Is that all right? I know, yeah. It'll all come together in a little bit. But as we're thinking about seeing, Jesus says this: Look at the birds of the air. We've been hearing them this morning already. He says, look at them. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? Which of you by worrying can add 1 cubit to his stature? So why do you worry? And then he says, look at the... this isn't my Bible, it's my brother's. I know. He asks us to look at the birds of the air, to consider the lilies of the field, and look at them clothed in splendor, like Solomon in all his majesty. Look, pay attention, see. And Jesus is saying, we're not just spiritual beings that live in a world and are just waiting around to get to heaven. No, we're created with all our senses, with all of it. And he's saying, as a medicine against worry and against concern, what I want you to do is I want you to pay attention. I want you to look. As a medicine against things that are weighing you down and making you feel like you're done, it's just finished. He's saying, no, I want you to look. I want you to see. I care over one sparrow that falls to the ground. Will I not care for you? Will I not see you? So Jesus is saying, pay attention to the songbirds. Pay attention to all the things around about us. The apples that swell with life. The storm clouds that roll in like they did yesterday. In this very act of contemplation and slowing down and considering, our trust can grow. Our worry can be dispelled. And peace and contentment can become reality. Saying, pay attention, look, see, and then you can rest. A conversation took place in the Second World War between a biologist, William Beebe, and the President of the United States. Theodore Roosevelt and I, William Beebe writes, after an evening talk would go out on the lawn and search the skies until we found the spot of light mist beyond the lower left-hand corner of the great square of Pegasus. Then one or the other of us would recite, that is the spiral galaxy in Andromeda. It is as large as our Milky Way. It is one of 100 million galaxies. It consists of 100 million suns, each one larger than our sun. Then Roosevelt would grin at me and say, now, I think we are small enough. Let's go to bed. Isn't that beautiful? But it's paying attention to the creativity of the Creator. Spending time thinking, seeing, understanding more. It's interesting, when you're painting something. I was painting a cup a little while ago. There's a cup. But you look at it and you see the form and you see where the ceramic, where the clay is broader and smaller and how the handle is formed, and you just sort of watch and see and then it becomes something on your canvas as you pay attention, as you look and as you see. And for the musicians among you, well, particularly for those examples that we looked at before, how the attention was paid to each songbird to try and write that song. But the songbird is said to be the most wonderful in all of creation, in music. It's amazing. The Creator does it best. And then we, as his creatures, made in his image, I didn't realize I still had that on, made in his image, we have a desire to do the same, to create, to show, to see. Creation declares him. Yeah, it's a response to his genius. It truly is. And God's communication to us is not just in seminaries and in sermons and in lectures and in studies and in doctrinal arguments and in persuasive words. Creation declares him. And it communicates theologically to our souls. In the songs, in all of it, it declares him. In the last little while in Scotland, we have had a lot of activity in the sky. There's been an awful lot of northern lights in Scotland, way down in Scotland rather than just in the north. And this noisy creation that it declares the glory, the skies proclaim day after day, they pour forth speech. Isn't that beautiful? Night after night, they display knowledge. There is no speech or language where their voice is not heard. Their voice goes out into all the earth, their words to the ends of the world. In the heavens, he has pitched a tent for the sun, which is like a bridegroom coming forth from his pavilion, like a champion rejoicing to run his course. It rises at one end of the heavens and makes its circuit to the other. Nothing is hidden from its heat. Isn't it stunning poetry? Isn't it absolutely, absolutely beautiful? So we, as image bearers created to display the glories of the truths of God, we pick up brushes and batons and guitars and pens to illustrate his majesty and communicate the greatness of the divine.